Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This week's Parsha is Tzav. And in Tzav, we have Moshe telling Aaron and his sons, the Kohanim, the rules of korbanot, offerings, so sacrifices, guilt offerings, sin offerings, peace offerings, thanks offerings, all these kinds of, details about these korbanot. And it's a little confusing for us when we get to these parshiot that are all about these particularities of sacrifices when we no longer do sacrifices. We no longer have the temple. We no longer have the Beit HaMikdash where you were to do sacrifices. And so what is the point of still having all of these parshiot? The point of still having all these parshiot is that we see how much of Judaism was based upon these korbanot, these sacrifices, these things that are no longer relevant. And somehow, when something so big, such a big part of our religion is no longer relevant, the religion itself has remained relevant. How is it that Judaism has survived when so many other civilizations and religions and groups that are sort of obsolete, once the thing that they're based upon goes away, they dissolve as well? But Judaism, korbanot dissolved, but we didn't. Why? Because as we all know, the answer is that we needed to make a pivot, needed to change. And now our religion no longer is based upon sacrifices. It's based upon prayer and acts of kindness and generosity, all these things that were able to replace sacrifices. So, we used to give, give your own money to buy an animal to sacrifice. Well, now you can sacrifice your money in being generous, in giving tzedakah. We used to say, oh, the blood and fat of an offering needs to dissolve for it to be relevant. Well, when we fast, blood and fat dissolve. So you're, like that was that's a gross example, but that is an example of how the priests thought of it. Prayer, being in the synagogue at certain times of day, in the same way that you did those three offerings, the Shacharit offering, the Mincha offering, and the Mariv offering. Now we have services for those times. Like we were able to pinpoint what it is about these sacrifices, these korbanot, these convenings with God, and find other ways to do it. And that shows a huge amount of flexibility and creativity. And it also shows that it's not that the things we used to do are no longer holy or are obsolete. It's that there is a new way to do it that still retains the holiness, that still retains the meaningfulness, that still makes us connect to God, but that we were able to, again, make the change and move on. I think it's just a powerful message because so much of life is seeing a situation and having to adjust, having to make a move that makes you successful. I think it's just a really great Judaism. That's just like very Judaism to me, that like seeing, being flexible and making changes. The other thing of note is that, we have the idea of a thanks offering. And who is supposed to give a thanks offering? The people that give a thanks, the examples of who gives a thanks offering in the Talmud says that four people need to give thanks: those who sail the seas, those who travel through deserts, those who are sick and who are cured, and prisoners who are freed. And the theme in all of these is people who have been vulnerable, people who have been in situations where they did not have control. So sailing the seas, you're a victim to whatever the ocean, those tides, that sort of thing. Traveling through deserts, you're outside of civilization, you're beyond the boundaries of normal laws, and anything can happen. If you're sick, again, you're sort of at the mercy of nature, of your body's nature. And then people who are prisoners who are freed, which this means prisoners, not necessarily hostages, but it made me think of our hostages, people who are just vulnerable and who are at the behest of somebody else. And that what we do immediately after that event is say Birkat HaGomel. We say this prayer of thanks, because we were in a vulnerable situation and now we no longer are. And you do it in front of the whole congregation. You do this on Saturday mornings at the point before the end of the Torah reading. And the whole congregation hears you. It's not, I mean, you can do it in private, I guess. You can do other kinds of prayer in private, but this is in front of the whole congregation. And what it reminds us is we are so vulnerable. The people who, return from being overseas, the people who return from being in the desert, people who return from being ill, that is such a reminder of how vulnerable we truly are, that we don't have the control over our faculties in the world like we think we do. And it's just kind of a powerful thing to think about. And again, I just, thinking about, again, our hostages that are still in Gaza that are unable to do anything Jewish because they're with these absolute animals. It's just such a reminder We have so much to be grateful for. We don't need to be in vulnerable situations to recognize that we should be incredibly grateful, but it is a good reminder when we see others in vulnerable situations how grateful we should be, and how much of life is truly random, beyond God's control, because human beings have free will and will do what they will do. So not necessarily a positive way to end the parsha, but it's just, I don't know. I think it's powerful, the idea like these specific kinds of people give thanks. It's not when good things happen to you that you say thanks. It's not when you win the lottery, or, that's not the time that you say thanks. You say thanks when you've been in a vulnerable situation and now you're out. And I think it's just a powerful thing. Again, that's so Judaism, to look at life's experiences and find some way to it's just so profound to me. So wishing you a Shabbat Shalom. God willing, I'll see you all next week, and be well.